Tap mat. Oh, it's recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm looking at myself. I can't do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor.
I'm Nathan.
And we are a photo video team based out of Seattle. And we just wanted to share a little bit about some wedding stress that we had to go through in the planning of our wedding a couple years ago. And just a little bit about like our experience with that, and maybe you'll find this helpful too.
Yeah, just to share our perspective. I know a lot of people have reached out and asked, at least during everything that happened, how did you guys get through it? So we thought, hey, why not just put something online, and that way it can forever stay up there. But yeah, to kind of tell what October 2017 looked like, and just kind of everything that we had to go through.
Yeah, quite a lot of things. So the first thing was that we were planning an out-of-state wedding. We lived in Southern California. We were getting married in Portland. I grew up in Vancouver, Washington, and so having a wedding near to home was so nice, and we found the perfect venue that was out in nature, and there's just nothing quite like Pacific Northwest beauty. And so instead of finding a venue in California that would like maybe come close, which I don't really think we could have.
Yeah, unless maybe it was like the Redwoods, or I don't know, maybe Yosemite kind of comes to mind. I think it was on the table for discussion, but with all of our trips up to Portland, we knew that was somewhere that kind of had our heart, and we wanted to officially kind of get married there.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? Just, we liked it.
Yeah, so planning an out-of-state wedding already comes with its own stress, but we were prepared for that, and I think we did a pretty good job. We had a year and a half to plan. It was either, okay, we get married in 6 months, or we get married in a year and a half. So we decided to go with the latter.
Yeah. Props to everybody that can plan a wedding within a year, but we just felt like we needed more time to kind of pinch our pennies. We scheduled it for about a year and a half out.
Yeah, which I think was great. I think that we had a lot of time to get all of our ducks in a row, and didn't feel like, oh my gosh, we have to make all of these decisions all at once. I feel like it was a really great timeline to just like ease yourselves into it. And I think that the timing really worked out, that we were like, on track, and I don't know, I didn't really feel super stressed in the planning of it all.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of research that had to be done, so I think there was a lot of like, okay, if I can't visually be there, I needed to do a lot of Google searches or look at every single review and kind of get some picture as how would it be if we were there. I even remember sometimes I would, at least for the proposal, I think I did this for the wedding as well, but to look at geolocations on Instagram and to see what the last 24 hours looked like, to give us some perspective for us to be there, even if we weren't.
Yeah, I think you were really good at that, the research aspect of that. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't visualize it, so I don't know, I'll deal with that later. Yeah. And that's somewhat the approach that I took. But yeah, all of the decisions that you have to make, and deciding on things sight unseen. We didn't do any venue tours. We decided on one, did one tour, put the retainer down. Like, we knew after just virtually seeing it that that's the place that we wanted to go, and so we went for it. And thanks to all of his diligent research on that aspect, but then with a lot of the other things of deciding what florals we were going to do and what a table would look like, and centerpieces and all of that, that was just like so hard for me to visualize without having everything in front of me, because I'm so much better at like working with things as they're in front of me and seeing like what works together, replacing items, stuff like that. And so the fact that I couldn't do that and get like all of the plates together just to see what I wanted was a little tricky. But I think a huge blessing in that is that I just found a florist that I trusted, and florals were a main part of our decor, and we just kind of talked about overall vision and then just let her be the expert and let her just do it. I had very little, I was not like micromanaging at all. I was just like, just don't put roses in it and we're good. Like wildflower vibe, just go for it. I really don't care. I know nothing about flowers, so I'm just gonna trust you in that. And so being able to like delegate in that way, I think was really helpful. And yeah, just like kind of trusting the process, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it'll just figure itself out, you know? Plates will go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it was just a lot of, like I think you used Pinterest a lot. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what this day was going to look like and relying on other people that were local. I even know your family friends were eager to check out like food vendors for us. Like every weekend they were like, what new food vendor can we, go out and check, research for you and let you know and provide feedback. But we kind of already knew who we wanted, so we definitely appreciate them offering. But
yeah,
I think once we found something that we knew that I guess maybe we loved, we had no problem in just saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna go with them. For example, like our food vendor, it was a food truck, and I think it just off the reviews and some of the Facebook network groups that we were a part of, that we are still a part of, they had a lot of great positive testimonials. And even I think it was a few, like 7 months before or something, we were documenting a wedding, and they just happened to be the food vendor. So it was a low key, just, yeah, they're the best ones out there.
Yeah, we got to see them in action when they had no idea that we were considering them for our wedding just yet. But I think after that wedding, we messaged them like within a week, saying like, hey, we were working this wedding, and also like, are you available for our date, because we loved your food. And when everyone is talking about how good the food is at a wedding, you know that it's a hit. And so that was a really clear indicator that that's who we wanted to go with, so we just trusted our gut.
What, like Taylor was saying, everything was all planned out, everything was squared away. I think we had most vendors locked in, deposits paid, or we were on that payment plan for August 2017-ish, around that time. And I would have to go back and do some research to actually confirm when this fire broke out. But there's a family that was hiking, and it just so happened that I think it was an underage, like under 15 child had a firecracker that they thought, oh man, it would be fun to just throw this off a cliff and kind of see what happened. And where it happened to land in some like brush that immediately caught fire. And within, I think, a matter of a couple hours, it was already like thousands of square feet. And what's interesting is, our wedding was in October. This was happening in August, so we thought like there's time for this to slow down. With how the gorge is placed, and maybe I can put a map on the screen to showcase where our wedding venue is in relation to where the fire started. There's a lot of distance in there. There's, I think, a couple miles. So we thought, oh, this was something that we didn't have to worry about, because the firefighters were going to be able to put it out, and it was going to be like no big deal. Like, yeah, some stuff was burned into the gorge, but not our venue. Our venue was going to be untouched.
And fires in the Pacific Northwest are not like California fires. Like, we were used to California fires where it's scary. You might have to leave your home, and brush fires just spread like crazy. But I think it was just one of those like perfect recipes for disaster. Of it literally spread like wildfire. And it was devastating to see, our wedding date get closer, and then also see this fire get closer and grow bigger, and not the uncertainty of what was going to happen next and what choice we would have to make was like really unsettling.
Roughly about 2 weeks out from when, our date. So this would have been like late September. We got the notice that It really just wasn't looking good. The fire continued to spread throughout the gorge, and it was getting closer and closer to our wedding venue. I even think a few weeks before we got this notice, they were limiting traffic going into the gorge, that you actually had to show your ID to confirm that you were actually a resident, just because of how many fire personnel and police were going into that and protecting really as much as they could. So if you could just imagine like a perfect storm, everything is in flames, and we finally get the email that they're not going to be able to, like, it's not looking good. They've already contacted, the venue has contacted their insurance to start issuing refunds for all the brides that have booked before our date, after, like during, around our date,
starting,
after our date.
Yeah, that weekend.
They were just issuing a whole bunch of refunds. So not great news to get 2 weeks out from your wedding date that you've planned, I think, a decent amount of time. You put a decent amount of time into it, knowing that you have to kind of, what it felt like, scrap everything and start over. It's like 2 weeks, here you go, timer, let's go. So we immediately looked online for flights. And just because of my work schedule, I wasn't able to take that time off. So we had to find really any flight available. I'm probably sure we probably spent more than double than what we usually pay to fly from Orange County to Portland. But
the very next day.
Yeah, but we booked a flight and we're like, you're going up there and you have one job. Find us a venue. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck indeed. Because at that point, I mean, early October is still a popular weekend to get married in the Pacific Northwest, because it's not very likely that it's going to rain, so you still might get some warm weather, but it's not like blistering hot either. And so going up and even just trying to find what venues I can walk through was few and far between. There was not very many that were available for our date, and that was one of the things that was going to keep it as easy as possible for us to have to replan everything, is that we have guests from out of town who already booked their flight to PDX, and so we just needed to make sure that around the Portland area is where we still needed to get married on this day. It's just like, I don't know what it's gonna look like, I don't know, but you know, that was like our basis of criteria. And so we found 4 venues that had our date available, that had like the outdoor vibe we were going for, and I scheduled them for that one day that I was in town. And so back to back to back in the pouring down rain, which thank goodness we actually had rain that day for the fires, that really helped. But in the pouring down rain, I'm driving from venue to venue, and in between venue walkthroughs, I'm calling Nathan, and I'm calling my mom, and I'm calling, you know, just other, like, multiple people in between my drive. And like, luckily, family based in the Portland area, they were offering to help. They knew people who had venues, and they were gonna see if like I could squeeze in one more walkthrough, which was so helpful, but also it was just so overwhelming, because it's like I'm trying to navigate to the next venue in the rain. I'm trying to process what the heck is happening with our wedding. We were even considering just scrapping the whole wedding, and maybe we just elope. Maybe we just forget about it and we just elope. This is why, you know, maybe we're not meant to have like a big wedding. And so all of these things are going through my mind, and just feeling like really alone in it, even though I wasn't. Like, we were so supported. And there's so much outpour of love for us, but then also like the decisions came down to us. Like, we had to decide what we were going to do with our wedding day and how we were going to handle it. Somebody had to choose. Somebody had to figure out the money aspect. Somebody had to figure out the timeline, stuff like that. And so I walked through 3 out of the 4 venues, and on the 3rd one, it was just very clear that we were going to be taken care of. The other 2 prior didn't seem to be like super helpful or compassionate about the situation. It was more like, yeah, business as usual. We are just wanting to book this date. Hopefully you got all your money back from that venue, because X amount of money is due, like, you know, we're 2 weeks out. So like by next week, like, we're gonna need payment in full. And the conversations of like, well, I don't have the money yet. Like, what am I supposed to do? I can't just, I'm waiting on insurance, And so the third venue, just the peace of mind that the manager who walked through with me was able to give me, and walked around the whole venue, and it was really well laid out, but then also they were helping us in all these small ways of, usually food trucks aren't allowed at our venue, but since you already have your food trucks paid for, we'll make the exclusion for you. We don't have any other events happening on your wedding date at our venue, so you can have full reign. What sections of our venue do you want to use? Normally it's just this area or just this area, and they allowed us to use like 4 of their common areas, which I was like extremely grateful for. And then at the end, they just sat down at the desk with me and they were like, what else can we do for you? And I just started crying, because it was just like the first time that day that I was like, okay, like I feel like this is a good decision, but then also in all of this unknown, knowing that somebody is also looking out for us, who has a handle on like what this day is going to look like, and that most of our hopes can still be followed through on our wedding day, was a huge peace of mind that they were giving me. And so I left and did video walkthrough, sent it to Nathan, and I was like, I think it's gonna work. I have no idea what this timeline's gonna look like, because we had to switch some stuff around, but...
Well, I mean, it was 30 minutes away, so we had to do a lot of switching and a lot of figuring out, okay, what's it gonna look like if we do move forward. And we did move forward with it, so it's like, okay, how is this gonna all work?
Yeah. And so just figuring all that out, we spent about 5 days after I got back home to really sit down and think about how do we even update all of our vendors. Hopefully everyone can still come, because it was what was once going to be in the Columbia Gorge is now out in Beaverton, so like a 30-minute difference. Does that change travel costs? Does it change the time frame that we need for the day? Is our food vendor okay with driving that far? All of these things. So we just had to check in with all of our vendors and just make sure all the ducks were in a row.
Yeah.
And so we replanned it all in 5 days, which is insane.
Yeah. So one other piece too, I don't know, I don't think we mentioned, is letting all the guests know.
Ugh.
So since it was out of state, what we had, I think we sent out, you roughly expect around half your invites to attend. So we sent out 200, we roughly got about 100 back saying we were good to go. So then it was the task of, okay, you have a week and a half, figure out how to let everybody know that they're not going to be able to get into their original venue, but we're changing it to across town. So thankfully, and I'm kind of curious, I don't know if anybody did do this, but I feel like our communication was good, but they physically couldn't even get to our venue because it was still like the road closures, the firefighters were still there, like news choppers and all that. So they wouldn't, I'm kind of curious if anybody actually did go out there and they're like, oh no, we actually go over here. But yeah, so we had to let everybody know of the update. So I think one of the things that we really excelled at was delegating who to reach out to. So we tasked each of the family members, each side, to reach out to their network and reach out to all those individuals. So
their side of the family.
Yeah, whether it's our parents, of like, okay, who did they know? They need to reach out to them. So I think we were only left with like 50 or so, or like probably like 30 or 40 people, I would say, ourselves, and then it was a pretty even split with our parents. Thankfully, help reach out to everybody else.
Yeah. Luckily, I had an Excel sheet going when we were sending out the invitations that had everyone's address and just all those details ready to go if they RSVP'd and stuff like that. And so it was already separated into each family, and then like his side and my side, and then I had a separate tab for us that had our vendors and our friends. And so we handled the vendors and friends, and then I just sent like my mom's or my side of the family to my mom and be like, please handle this. And then like we sent Nathan's parents his side of the list, and we were like, please handle this. And then that way it just helped delegate so that we didn't have to do all those back and forth text messages, but we were just able to tell, the two people who were left in charge to help like re-communicate that to all of our guests, which I think was a huge weight off, because everybody knew at that point that we were displaced. Everybody on social media knew about it. We were being pretty active on Facebook and Instagram, just like updating people, and so they were ready for the update, and they knew that the date was still going to happen. It was just a matter of where. And so having them like on the edge waiting was also helpful, because nobody was blindsided by like, oh wait, what we're changing, where am I going now? So I think for the most part everyone kept their same hotels and everything, just had to pay for a more expensive Uber or something to get to our wedding day. But the coming back to like feeling so supported is that there was no pushback on like us having to change the venue and the venue being less convenient for people. We were just filled, like it was hard to keep up on like the messages and the phone calls of how many people were just like, oh my gosh, I just heard, like, we can't wait to still celebrate with you. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. Like, we just love you. Let me know if you need anything. Like, all of these things. And it was just, it filled us up knowing, like, I've never felt more supported in my life than, like, in those couple of weeks trying to hustle and figure all that out.
Yeah. And I think premarital counseling also helps. So it was, like, family members, friends, but there was also some premarital counseling that helped us gave us the tools to navigate around these difficult conversations that we were having to like continue to have over and over again. It was months of like, okay, this isn't going well. How are we going to figure it out? Yeah. So I know, like they say, I think one of the most stressful things you can do is like plan a wedding, and like I think we totally had to go through that to let everybody know, coordinate with so many different things.
And just that level of stress too, like your head is just spinning with all the newfound choices that you have to make, and like it's just stressful. And so you take out the stress on the people closest to you, and so that would have been so easy for us to just fight and just be like, oh well, I don't want to compromise on this or whatever. But I think we just both knew that we're in this together, and at this point we just have to figure it out. And the wedding day is going to look like however it's going to look like, but at the end of the day we're getting married, and that's the focus. The focus of a wedding day is about the relationship to this point and like everything we've gone through and accomplished together, and the marriage of this day of like two becoming one and like promising and vowing to each other all of these things, and then also the marriage to come, and like this is the new chapter for us. We're starting our own family. We're starting a new legacy. Like there's so much more to a wedding than just a party, and so I think when we wrapped our heads around that and like really made that the primary focus again, and like set aside what the decor was gonna look like I already didn't really care about the flowers, but they were still kind of important to me. But then after the fact, like I literally did not care what the wedding looked like. It was just the fact that we were getting married, and all of these people who rallied around us and showed that so vividly to us of how much they love and support us, and being all together. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. Yeah. And being all together in one place to celebrate us, like that never happens. Like having everybody who loves you in the same room is really powerful, and being able to see that through. And I think in summary, our headspace was like in the right place. Yeah. Before I start crying. Yeah. I gotta settle myself down for a minute.
Yeah. But just the last thing, I think it was the vendors that really helped put the icing on the cake. I don't think there was a vendor that complained. I mean, granted, I'm sure they billed us for it, but the extra mileage that they had to drive, or
I don't even remember
this,
anymore.
Difficult layout because the truck is at a slant, and all the little things you don't really think about. They were able to make the day so much easier, and just one less thing that kind of we had to worry about.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated that. If there was a problem, we did not hear about it, and I kind of take that into the wedding days that we approach too, of like the couple does not need to know XYZ is going wrong, because like, you know what, we're gonna handle it. And like the team of vendors that are there for your day, that's what they're in charge of. They understand the vision that you're going for, and they're going to execute that to the best of their ability, and everyone comes together to make this the best day ever for this couple. And I think that we had a really good team surrounding us, like outside of our guests, because we didn't really want them to have to do any task or anything either. We pretty much had it covered by our vendors, and so they were the all-stars on our day for sure, just navigating, you know, the space isn't meant for food trucks. So like you said, like there was probably, I never even thought about that. Like there was probably issues in where the trucks could be parked, because we had like...
Well, there was outlets, so that was one of the things that
You heard about that?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. No one told me.
Yeah, it's figuring out.
I think for good reason.
Yeah. Power for some of the, I couldn't remember if it was the coffee or food, but there was not an outlet near them, so I was figuring out, okay, how to get this outlet or this, you know, cord over there and not let anybody trip over it, so we didn't, it was just stuff that, Yeah,
so things like that, I appreciate that on the day of, there was no need for us to actually hear about that, and there was a couple things after the fact that maybe got lost in translation, but they were handled, and you know what, our guests weren't affected by it. There was no like, oh my gosh, what, like, it's hard to see them that they like pulled this together, but really everyone was saying that the wedding day was so us, and just, you know, we pulled it off.
Through all the challenges that we had to go through, I thought it went really well, and it was a day that I'll personally never forget, and I'm sure likewise for you.
Never ever.
But that's kind of our story for their wedding day. We'll put our I think it was featured on Junebug, so we'll put the link on there, and then all the other vendors that we coordinated with for our day, that if you wanted to take a look at them, we highly recommend them.
If you want an all-star team for your day, we got you covered.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.